Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Karina, living Lean Six Sigma or living L6S, where I live, breathe, do continuous improvement. Right now we're on our Oral and Practical Airframe, and what else am I supposed to tell you? Yes, I know my hair is crazy. We can just get started. Wood structures. Question: which species of wood is considered to be the standard when comparing other woods for use in aircraft structure? Answer: Sitka spruce. S-I-T-K-A, Sitka spruce. Question: what is the basic difference between plywood and laminated wood? Answer: the grain in each layer of the laminated wood runs in the same direction. The grain in the layers of plywood runs at 90 degrees or 45 degrees to each other. Question: what kind of glue is recommended for making a repair to a wooden aircraft structure? Answer: synthetic resin glue. Question: how is aircraft plywood prepared for making a compound bend? Answer: the wood is soaked in hot water until it is pliable. Question: how is pressure applied to the glue joint when splicing a wood aircraft wing spar? Answer: with cabinet makers' parallel clamps. Question: how much pressure must be applied to a glue joint in a piece of softwood to produce a strong joint? Answer: 125 to 150 pounds per square inch. Question: what is the correct repair to a wooden aircraft wing spar if the wing attached bolt holes in the spar are elongated? Answer: splice in a new section of the spar and drill new holes. Question: what kind of repair is recommended for the hole in the plywood skin of an aircraft wing? Answer: a scarf patch. A scarf patch. Question: what is the recommended taper for a splayed patch in a plywood aircraft skin? Answer: 5:1. Question: what is the recommended taper for a scarf patch in a plywood aircraft skin? Answer: 12:1. Question: what should sandpaper never be used when preparing a scarf joint in a wing spar for splicing? Answer: the dust caused by sanding will plug the pores of the wood so the glue cannot get in to form a good bond. Question: what is the largest hole in a plywood wing skin that can be repaired with a fabric patch? Answer: 1 inch in diameter. Question: why are light steel bushings often used in bolt holes in a wooden wing spar? Answer: the bushing keeps the spar from being crushed when the nut on the attachment bolt is tightened. Question: how long should a glue joint be kept under pressure when splicing a wood aircraft wing spar? Answer: for at least 7 hours. Question: are mineral streaks in a piece of structural aircraft wood reason for rejecting the wood? Answer: no, if there is no evidence of decay in the wood. Question: which area of a wooden aircraft wing spar must not contain any splice? Answer: there must be no splicing under wing attached fittings, landing gear fittings, engine mount fittings, or lift and interplane strut fittings. Question: how is compression wood identified? Answer: it has a high specific gravity. It appears to have an excessive growth of summerwood and little contrast between the springwood and the summerwood. Question: what is done to a splice in a wooden aircraft wing spar to strengthen the splice? Answer: reinforcing plates are glued to both sides of the splice. Question: why must abrupt changes in the cross-sectional area of a wooden structural member be avoided? Answer: Abrupt changes in the cross-sectional area of a structural member concentrates stresses and can cause failures. Next section for wood structures is the practical projects. Know how to explain to the examiner the correct way to repair a wing spar that has an elongated bolt hole in its root end. Next, install a scarf patch in a damaged piece of aircraft plywood. Next, inspect a piece of wood for evidence to dry rot. Explain to the examiner what should be done if dry rot is found. Next, make a scarf splice to a piece of wing rib cap strip material. Reinforce the splice to get maximum strength. Next, inspect a piece of wing spar material to determine if the grain deviation is within the limits allowed for aircraft wood. Next, properly mix a batch of resin glue and explain to the examiner the correct way to apply this glue to the wood when making a repair to aircraft wood structures. Next, given several pieces of wood, examine them for condition and for meeting the specifications for aircraft structural wood. Next, inspect a wood aircraft structure to determine whether or not it is in airworthy condition. Next, inspect a plywood aircraft structure for evidence of delamination of the plywood or for the failure of the glue joint between the skin and the underlying structure. Last, explain to the examiner the correct way of repairing a piece of aircraft structure that has been glued with casein glue, CASEIN. Next section, aircraft covering. Question: what are 3 types of fabric that can be used to cover an aircraft? Answer: cotton fabric, synthetic fabric, and glass fabric. Question: what paperwork must be completed if an aircraft that was originally covered with grade A cotton fabric is recovered using a synthetic fabric? Answer: the covering must be done according to the supplemental type certificate, and a Form 337 must be executed stating that all materials and processes complied with the requirements of the STC. Question: what type of rib lacing cord is recommended for attaching cotton fabric to an aircraft structure? Answer: waxed linen cord. Question: how wide should the surface tape be that is used to cover the trailing edge of an aircraft wing? Answer: 3 inches wide. Question: why is the surface tape used on the trailing edge of the control surface of some airplanes notched? Answer: since the edges of the tape face into the wind, it is possible that it could start to lift and form a very effective spoiler. If the tape is notched, it will tear off at a notch. Question: what is the purpose of the reinforcing tape that is used between the fabric and the rib lacing on an aircraft wing? Answer: the reinforcing tape keeps the rib lacing cord from pulling through the fabric. Question: should a sewn seam in the fabric used to cover an aircraft wing run spanwise or cordwise? Answer: both spanwise and cordwise seams are permissible, but cordwise seams are preferred. Question: what is the preferred seam used for machine sewing pieces of aircraft fabric together? Answer: the French fell seam. Question: what type of material is used for inter-rib bracing in a fabric covered aircraft wing? Answer: cotton reinforcing tape. Question: what type of knot is used for locking the stitches that are used for rib lacing on a fabric covered aircraft wing? Answer: a modified Seine knot, SEINE. Question: what determines the spacing of rib lacing stitches on a fabric covered aircraft wing? Answer: the never exceed speed of the aircraft. Question: When is the finishing tape applied to a fabric covered wing when it is being recovered? Answer: after the second coat of dope has dried and the nape or nap of the fabric has been sanded off. Question: what is the recommended type of repair to a fabric covered aircraft surface when it has L-shaped tears with each of the legs of the tear more than 14 inches long? Answer: if the never exceed speed of the aircraft is less than 150 miles per hour, a doped on repair can be made. Question: what type of hand sewing stitch is used when sewing in a panel of new fabric on an aircraft fabric covered wing? Answer: a baseball stitch, locked every 8 to 10 stitches. Question: what is the minimum strength to which aircraft fabric is allowed to deteriorate before it is considered to be unairworthy? Answer: 70%. It has to be deteriorated up to 70% of the strength of the fabric that is required for the aircraft. Question: what is an anti-tear strip and when are they required on a fabric covered aircraft? Answer: an anti-tear strip is a strip of the same type of fabric as is used with covering the wing. It is laid over the rib between the reinforcing tape and the fabric. An anti-tear strip is required for aircraft that have a never exceed speed in excess of 250 miles per hour. Question: when are drainage grommets applied when an aircraft is being recovered? Answer: they are laid into the third coat of dope at the same time the surface tape is applied. Question: where are drainage grommets located on a fabric covered aircraft wing? Answer: at the lowest point in each bay. It is customary to install a grommet on each side of the wing rib on the underside of the wing at the trailing edge. Question: how is the strength of the fabric on aircraft structure determined? Answer: an approximate strength test can be made with an FAA approved fabric punch tester, but the only way to know for sure that the fabric has sufficient strength is by pull testing a 1-inch wide sample of the fabric. Question: why are some portions of the structure of an aircraft dope proofed before they are covered with fabric? Answer: dope proofing keeps the fabric from sticking to the structure when the first coat of dope is applied. The fabric normally sags enough to touch the structure before it begins to pull taut. Question: what is done to cotton and linen fabric to protect it from mildew? Answer: the first coat of dope that is used on cotton and linen fabric has a mildewcide mixed in it. Question: how is polyester synthetic fabric shrunk on an aircraft structure? Answer: it is shrunk with heat from an iron or from a heated blower. The next section is going to be practical projects for aircraft covering. Okay, task you need to know how to do is demonstrate to the examiner the proper way to stitch fabric to an aircraft wing. Next, test the fabric on an aircraft structure to determine if it is airworthy. Next, make a doped on patch to a damaged area in a fabric covered aircraft structure. Next, demonstrate to the examiner the proper way to sew a piece of new fabric to a piece of damaged fabric on an aircraft structure. Next, install a drainage grommet on the trailing edge of a fabric covered aircraft wing. Demonstrate the correct way of opening the hole in the grommet. Next, explain to the examiner the correct procedure for covering an aircraft wing with polyester synthetic fabric. Next, demonstrate the proper splicing knot to use when joining pieces of waxed rib lacing cord. Next, determine the correct spacing to use for rib lacing on an aircraft that is specified by the examiner. Next, test the strength of a piece of aircraft fabric using the pull test. Last, explain to the examiner the correct way of removing wrinkles from cotton fabric that is installed on an aircraft structure before the dope is applied. Next section, aircraft finishes. Question: why should wooden wing spars be finished with a transparent varnish? Answer: the transparent finish allows any decay or rot that develops in the wood to be detected. Question: why is retarder used in dope when the dope is being sprayed in humid conditions? Answer: the retarder slows the drying of the dope and keeps it from blushing. Question: what is used as a protective finish for the inside of steel tubing? Answer: hot linseed oil. Question: how thick should a coat of wash primer be that is used on an aluminum alloy aircraft structure? Answer: it should be thin enough that it does not hide the surface of the metal. Question: what happens to an enamel finish when paint remover is applied to it? Answer: the enamel softens and swells so that it pulls away from the surface of the metal. Question: what should be done to an aircraft surface that is covered with paint remover to give the remover the maximum amount of time to soak into the old finish? Answer: the surface should be covered with a piece of polyethylene sheeting such as a paint drop cloth. This will keep the solvents from evaporating before they have time to penetrate the paint film. Question: when mixing epoxy paint, should the converter be added to the resin or the resin to the converter? Answer: the converter should always be added to the resin, never the resin to the converter. Question: why is the general reason for runs and sags in a finish that is being sprayed onto a flat surface? Answer: too much paint is being applied, the film is too thick. Question: what can be done to remedy blushing that has formed on a doped surface that has just been sprayed? Answer: spray a very light mist coat of a mixture of 1 part retarder to 2 parts of thinner over the blushed area. Allow it to dry and spray on another coat. If this does not remove the blushed dope will have to be sanded off and new dope applied. Question: how can a vinyl film decal be removed from an aluminum alloy surface? Answer: place a cloth saturated with cyclohexanone or MEK, methyl ethyl ketone, over the decal until it is softened and scrape it off the surface with the plastic scraper. Question: what safety precautions must be observed when sweeping a paint room that has dried dope or lacquer overspray on the floor? Answer: the floor must be wet down with water before it is swept. Static electricity from dry sweeping can cause a fire. Question: when an aircraft is being recovered, when is fungicide dope applied to the fabric? Answer: with the first coat of dope that is brushed into the fabric. Question: what will happen if dope is sprayed over an enameled surface? Answer: the thinner in the dope will penetrate the enamel surface and cause it to swell. Question: what are the 3 types of primer that may be used when painting an aircraft? Answer: zinc chromate primer, wash primer, and epoxy primer. Question: how is the finish removed from a fiberglass aircraft component that is being repaired? Answer: the finish must be sanded off. Paint remover can soften the resin of which the component is made. Question: what are 2 basic types of dope that are used on fabric covered aircraft? Answer: nitrate dope and butyrate CAB dope. Question: what kind of dope is used on polyester synthetic fabric that has been heat shrunk on an aircraft structure? Answer: non-tautening butyrate dope. Question, what type of thinner is used with zinc chromate primer? Answer, toluene or toluene. Toluene. All right, next section, typical practical projects for aircraft finishes. Task, mix dope and the correct thinner to get the proper viscosity for spraying. Demonstrate to the examiner or the correct ways to spray the dope on an aircraft surface. Next, properly clean a piece of aluminum alloy and apply the correct amount of primer for best adherence of the top coat material. Next, determine whether the dope that is on a piece of fabric covered structure is nitrate or butyrate. Next, demonstrate to the examiner the correct way of applying the first coat of dope to the fabric that is being installed on an aircraft structure. Next, demonstrate to the examiner the correct way of dry sanding a fabric covered aircraft wing. Next, demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to spray a surface with a polyurethane enamel. Next, identify the correct thinner to use with a list of finishing materials that is furnished by the examiner. Next, properly adjust the pressure of the air on a spray gun and pressure pot for spraying aircraft dope. Next, explain to the examiner the correct size and location for the identification numbers that are required on an aircraft. Next, properly remove the finish from a piece of fiberglass reinforced aircraft structure so that the structure can be repaired. And last, explain to the examiner the reason for using aluminum pigmented dope on a fabric covered aircraft structure and explain why it is important to not use too much aluminum dope. Next section, sheet metal structures. Question, what are 3 requirements for a repair to a piece of sheet metal aircraft structure? Answer, the repair must restore the lost strength and rigidity, and it must not change the aerodynamic shape of the part. Question, when making a riveted repair to an aircraft sheet metal structure, which should be the stronger, the shear strength of a rivet or the bearing strength of the metal sheet? Answer, the 2 strengths should be close to each other, but the bearing strength of the sheet should be greater. You want the shear rivet to shear. Okay. Question, what kind of stress is in the upper skin of an aircraft wing in flight? Answer, compression. Question, what type of device is a Cleco fastener? Answer, a patent fastener that is inserted in the rivet holes and is used to hold 2 pieces of sheet metal together until they can be riveted. Question, what is the main function of throatless shears in an aircraft sheet metal shop? Answer, throatless shears are used to cut mild carbon sheet up to 10 gauge and the stainless steel up to 12 gauge. They can be used to cut irregular curves in the metal. Question, what is the purpose of a sightline when laying out sheet metal to be bent in a cornice break? Answer, the sightline allows the jaws of the cornice break to be positioned so the bend made by the break will start at the bend tangent line. Question, what kind of metal forming is done by a slip roll former? Answer, simple curves with a large radius. Question, what kind of metal forming is done by bumping? Answer, compound curves in sheet metal. Question, what must be done to the flanges of an angle for it to be curved? Answer, the flanges must be stretched for a convex curve and shrunk for a concave curve. Question, what is meant by the bend allowance used in making a bend in a piece of sheet metal? Answer, The bend allowance is the amount of metal that is actually used in making the bend in a piece of sheet metal. Question: what determines the minimum bend radius that can be used with a piece of sheet metal? Answer: the thickness of the material and its hardness. Question: what is meant by setback when bending a piece of sheet metal in a cornice brake? Answer: setback is the distance the jaws of the brake must be set back from the mold line to form the bend. Question: why are the lightning holes in a sheet metal wing rib flanged? Answer: flanging the lightning holes gives the rib rigidity. Question: when hand forming a piece of sheet metal that has a concave curve, should the forming be started in the center of the curve or at its edges? Answer: start at the edges and work towards the center. Question: what is meant by a joggle in a piece of sheet metal? Answer: a joggle is a small offset near the edge of a piece of sheet metal that allows the sheet to overlap another piece of metal. Question: when drilling stainless steel, should the drill be turned fast or slow? Answer: it should be turned slowly. Question: what is the minimum edge distance allowed when installing rivets in a piece of aircraft sheet metal structure? Answer: 2 times the diameter of the rivet. Question: what is the recommended transverse pitch to use when making a riveted 2-row splice in a piece of sheet metal? Answer: 3/4. 3/4 of the pitch of the rivets in the rows. Question: why should aluminum alloy rivets be driven with as few blows as is practical? Answer: excessive hammering will harden the rivets and make them difficult to drive. Question: what determines whether a piece of sheet metal should be dimpled or countersunk when installing flush rivets? Answer: the thickness of the sheet. Countersinking should be done only when the thickness of the sheet is greater than the thickness of the riveted head. Question: what type of metal should be hot dimpled? Answer: 775-T6, 2024-T81, aluminum alloys, and magnesium alloys should be hot dimpled. Question: what kind of repair can be made to a small damage of the core material and one face sheet of a piece of aluminum alloy honeycomb structure? Answer: a potted compound repair. Ooh, gotcha. Question: what special precautions must be taken when repairing a radome? Answer: nothing must be done to the radome that will affect its electrical transparency or its aerodynamic strength. Question: how is the point of a twist drill ground that is to be used for drilling transparent acrylic material? Answer: the cutting edge should be dubbed off to a 0 rake angle, and the included angle of the tip should be ground to 140 degrees. Question: what causes crazing in a piece of transparent acrylic material? Answer: uneven stresses in the material, usually caused by heat. Question: what is the purpose of anodizing a piece of aluminum alloy and how is it applied? Answer: anodizing is a protective oxide film that is deposited. Why can't you just say deposited? Deposited, so not posited? Sorry. Okay. Anodizing is a protective oxide film that is deposited on the surface of an aluminum alloy by an electrolytic process. All right, practical projects for sheet metal structures. Number 1, Lay out and form a channel of specified dimensions from a piece of aluminum alloy sheet. Use the minimum bend radius allowed for the material. Question, or next, select the correct length and diameter of special rivets furnished by the examiner and properly install them to join two pieces of aluminum alloy sheets. Next, make a flush patch repair to a hole in a sheet metal aircraft structure. Next, select the proper twist drill and demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to drill stainless steel. Next, select the proper twist drill and demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to drill transparent acrylic plastic. Next, lay out an octagonal patch that will restore the strength lost by a crack in a piece of stressed fuselage skin. Next, distinguish between a piece of acrylic plastic and a piece of cellulose acetate plastic. Next, form a compound curve channel to reinforce a damage in a fuselage frame specified by the examiner. Next, given an assortment of aircraft rivets, identify each by their proper part number and the type of material. Next, demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to set up and use a squeeze riveter. Next, properly remove a series of rivets from a piece of aircraft structure. Next, repair a small damage to a piece of honeycomb structure. Next, demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to check a bonded honeycomb structure for indication of internal delamination. And last, repair a shallow scratch in a piece of transparent acrylic material. Next section, welding. Question, why is TIG GTA welding preferred over oxyacetylene welding for building and repairing welded steel tube aircraft structure? Answer, the heat is concentrated in the weld and does not cause as much distortion as gas welding. Question, what are two types of electric resistance welding used in aircraft construction? Answer, spot welding and seam welding. Question, why is it important that the pressure of the gas in an acetylene cylinder be kept low? Answer, acetylene gas becomes unstable when it is kept under pressure of more than about 15 psi per square inch. Question, what determines the amount of heat that is put into a weld by an oxyacetylene torch? Answer, the size of the orifice in the torch tip. Question, what is the difference in the appearance of an oxidized flame, a neutral flame, and a reducing flame produced by an oxyacetylene torch? Answer, an oxidizing flame has a pointed inner cone and the torch makes a hissing noise. A neutral flame has a rounded inner cone and there is no feather around the inner cone. And the reducing flame has a definite feather around the inner cone. Question, what is meant by tack welding? Answer, tack welding is the use of small welded spots to hold the material together until the final bead is run. Question, why must thick plates of metal be preheated before they are welded? Answer, preheating is a method of controlling the expansion and contraction of the metal that is being welded. Preheating minimizes the stresses that are caused when welding thick metal. Question, why is it important that all traces of the welding flux be removed after a piece of aluminum or magnesium is welded? Answer, welding flux is corrosive and it must be removed to keep the metal from corroding. Question, what is the function of the inert gas that is used in TIG and MIG welding? Answer: the inert gas forms a shield to keep oxygen away from the weld puddle, so oxides cannot form and weaken the weld. Question: what is the difference between brazing and welding? Answer: in brazing, the base metal is not melted, but is covered with a low melting point alloy. In welding, the base metal is also melted. Question: what is used as the electrode in TIG welding? Answer: a small diameter tungsten wire. Think TIG as tungsten. Question: is a heat-treated steel part normally repairable by welding? Answer: no. Welding destroys the heat treatment. Question: what is the function of the flux in brazing and soldering? Answer: flux covers the cleaned and heated metal to keep oxygen away from it. Oxidizes keep the solder or brazing material from adhering to the surface of the metal. So it does the opposite. One makes it stick to it, one pushes or makes sure it doesn't stick to it. Question: what kind of solder is recommended for soldering electric wires? Answer: 60-40 resin core solder. Question: what kind of flame should be used when gas welding aluminum? Answer: a soft, neutral, oxyhydrogen flame is recommended. Question: what is an acceptable acetylene line pressure to use when welding with an oxyacetylene rig? Answer: about 5 psi. Question: what kind of flame should be used when gas welding stainless steel? Answer: a slightly carburized flame. Question: how much should the bead penetrate the material when welding 2 pieces of steel with a butt weld? Answer: the joint should have 100% penetration. Question: what is meant by a soft flame? Answer: a soft flame is one that is made when the pressure of the gases are low enough that the flame does not make a noise and does not blow the puddle. Question: what must be done to an aircraft fuel tank before it can be repaired by welding? Answer: the gas fumes must all be purged from the tank by running live steam through it for at least 30 minutes, by soaking it in hot water, or by filling it with nitrogen or carbon dioxide. Next section, welding typical practical projects. Number 1, demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to set up an oxyacetylene weld rig, to light the torch, to adjust it to get a neutral flame, and to shut down the rig. Next, demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to install, light, and adjust an oxyacetylene cutting torch. Demonstrate the correct way to cut across a piece of steel. Next, prepare 2 pieces of steel tubing and weld them together to form a T. Next, using examples of welds furnished by the examiner, select the ones that are not airworthy and explain the reason the welds are not acceptable. Next, correctly set up a TIG welding rig and make a proper bead across a piece of steel. Next, correctly prepare and join 2 pieces of steel by brazing. Next, correctly prepare and solder a stranded copper wire into an electrical connector. Next, demonstrate the correct use of tack welds and skip welding to prevent thin sheet of metal warping when they are being butt welded. Next, demonstrate forehand and backhand welding. This is like tennis comments. What do you mean forehand and backhand welding? Okay, sorry. Demonstrate forehand and backhanded welding and explain to the examiner the reason for each type of welding is used. Next, to demonstrate the correct way to remove flux from a piece of aluminum that has been welded. And last but not least, make a paper template of a reinforcing patch that would be properly used to repair a longeron in a steel tube fuselage that has been dented at a cluster weld. Next section, assembly and rigging. Question: why is it specifically important that the leading edge of a wing and the upper surface of the forward half of the wing be kept free of dents and any dirt or contaminations? Answer: the air flowing over this portion of the wing must be smooth to produce the maximum amount of lift. If the surface is rough or dirty, the airflow will be distorted and lift will be lost. Question: what is meant by the angle of attack of an airplane wing? Answer: the acute angle that is formed between the chord line and the airfoil and the direction of the air that strikes it. Next, or question: what are the four basic forces that act on an aircraft in flight? Lift, drag, thrust, and gravity. Next question: what is meant by the angle of incidence of an airplane wing? Answer: the acute angle that is formed between the chord line of an airfoil and the longitudinal axis of the aircraft on which it is mounted. Question: what causes parasite drag on an airplane? Answer: the friction of the air flowing over the surface. Question: name the three axes of an airplane and the control that rotates the airplane about each of its three axes. Answer: longitudinal axis, ailerons; lateral axis, elevators; and then vertical axis, rudder. So longitudinal, long; horizontal, lateral; and then this is vertical. I gave you an extra one. Question: does the lift that is produced by the horizontal tail surfaces of an airplane act upward or downward in normal flight? Answer: downward. Question: what is the function of lateral dihedral in the wings of an airplane? Answer: lateral dihedrals give the aircraft roll stability or stability about the longitudinal axis. Question: what is the purpose of a stall strip on an airplane wing? Answer: stall strips distort the airflow over the top of the wing in the root area at high angles of attack. They cause the root of the wing to stall out at a lower angle of attack than the portion of the wing ahead of its ailerons, or ahead of the ailerons. Question: what is the function of a servo tab on an aircraft control surface? Answer: a servo tab produces an aerodynamic force on a control surface that aids the pilot in moving the surface. Question: why do most high-performance aircraft use slotted flaps? Answer: slotted flaps can be deflected to a greater angle than other types of flaps before the airflow over the surface breaks away. Question: what is the purpose of a movable slat in the leading edge of some airplane wings? Answer: the movable slat remains flush with the leading edge of the wing during all low angles of attack. Flight coordinations. When the angle of attack becomes high, the slat automatically moves out of the wing and forms a duct, which forces the air back over the upper surface of the wing. This delays the stall. Question: what causes dissymmetry of lift produced by the rotor of a helicopter? Answer: the forward speed of a helicopter produces dissymmetry of lift. The rotor blade, which is traveling forward as the helicopter is flying, produces more lift than the blade that is traveling rearward. Question: why do single rotor helicopters use an auxiliary rotor on their tail? Answer: the thrust from the auxiliary rotor on the tail of the helicopter counteracts the torque produced by the main rotor. Question: why is it important that the leading edge of a supersonic airplane wing be kept free from dents and damage? Answer: a sharp leading edge allows an oblique shock wave to attach to the airfoil in supersonic flight. If the leading edge is dented or blunted, a normal shock wave will form and slow the air immediately behind it to a subsonic velocity. Question: what is the purpose of vortex generators on the wing of a high-speed airplane? Answer: vortex generators pull high-energy air down to the surface of the wing and keep shock-induced separation from occurring. Question: why are the control cables of large airplanes normally equipped with automatic tension regulators? Answer: the large amount of aluminum in the aircraft structure contracts so much that it has temperature drops in flight that the control cables could become dangerously loose. The automatic tension regulators keep the cable tension constant as the dimensions of the aircraft changes. Question: why is it important that the blades of a helicopter rotor system be in track? Answer: if the blades are not in track, the vertical vibration can develop. Question: why is it important that any repair to the control surface of an airplane not change their original condition of balance about the hinge line? Answer: a control surface that is out of static balance can flutter in certain flight conditions. Flutter normally tears the surface off the aircraft. Jesus. And question: what FAA publication could you find correct control surface movement for a particular airplane? Answer: the TCDS Type Certificate Datasheet for the airplane. Next section is the practical projects for the assembly and rigging. Number 1, locate in the appropriate document the control surface movement for an airplane specified by the examiner. Measure this movement and determine whether or not it is correct. Next, adjust the tension of an aircraft control cable and properly safety wire the turnbuckle. Next, properly install a swaged-on terminal on an aircraft control cable. Then demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to check the terminal for proper swaging. Next, check the flight controls of an airplane, including all of the secondary controls for the correct direction of movement when the flight deck controls are moved. Next, demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to inspect a piece of aircraft control cable for indication of internal corrosion. Next, check a primary flight control surface for its condition of static balance. Next, using the appropriate document, locate the jacking points of an airplane. Then explain to the examiner the precautions that should be taken when jacking the aircraft. Next, check an aircraft landing gear for the proper amount of toe in or toe out and for the proper amount of camber. Next, explain to the examiner the correct way to check the track of a helicopter rotor system. Explain the correct way to adjust the blades to bring them into proper condition of track. Next, demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to determine whether or not a rod end bearing is screwed into a push-pull tube to the proper depth. Next, demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to attach a rod end bearing to a control horn. Next, explain to the examiner the proper way to correct a specified airplane for a wing-heavy condition. And last but not least, connect a control cable to a control horn with a clevis bolt, and then demonstrate to the examiner the correct way to adjust the tightness of the nut and the proper way to safety the nut to the bolts. All right, in the next video, we're going to do airframe inspection. So this was part 1 of Oral and Practical Airframe, and I'll see you in part 2. Good luck.